We'll go ahead and call to order the Kingston Springs Board of Commission public hearing for November 18th. We'll open up for public comments on Ordinance 21-012, amending Ordinance 21-006 and accepting budget amendment for the July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 fiscal year. Is anyone here to speak about that or to make public comment? But there is. All right. Well, then we will adjourn the public hearing.
Motion to adjourn.
And call to order the Kingston Springs Board of Commission meeting for November 18th. Could everyone please rise and face the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, John, please call the roll.
Gerald Clark.
Here.
Josh Edelman.
Here.
Tony Gross.
Here.
Mike Hargis. Here. Lynn Rose.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Do we have a motion to approve the October 21st, 2021 public hearing meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve the October 2021 City Commission meeting minutes?
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Do we have one addition to the agenda, and that's just a few items. 14, we have the surplus items, which is the KitchenAid refrigerator, and that's it. Actually, so that'll be on in addition to the agenda. But do we have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, announcements from commissioners. Yeah,
Yeah, I've got a couple here actually. I want to commend Doug Winters. He and I have been working on TDEC before I even ran for office. Contacting TDOT about East Kingston Springs, and went back and forth, and they said they didn't have money to put in the rumble strips or joint bank that. And he took it upon himself, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and he wrote Senator Roberts. And lo and behold, East Kingston Springs now has rumble strips on the edges. They
Awesome.
came in and put them down, so I commend him for being dogged about doing that. And also too, I had been in contact with Mr. Hester, the superintendent in Cheatham County, and when TVP did Jackson Cabin Road.
Mhm.
And so I had written him and said, we really thanked him for doing that, and wondered if they could do the road striping on East Kingston Springs. And they did Fairview Kingston Springs Road, and did the road striping on that. And I don't know if that was just coincidental and about the same time I rode, or if he was having TVP do that, but it's great that it was done. And so I contacted Mr. Hood, superintendent of Williamson County, because I've had people complaining about when they drive to Fairview at night in the rain, they just can't see. They can't see the road. And he actually got back to me a few days ago and said that he can let everybody know that Fairview Kingston Road from the Williamson County line to 96 is slated for both repaving and restriping in 2022. So people should be really happy about that, especially if they live in the ranchettes or even going shopping in Fairview. And that was it.
Josh.
So, a few of you know, and maybe the rest of you don't, my wife and children and myself have been afforded the opportunity to purchase our new dream home that unfortunately resides 1.5 miles outside of the Kingston Springs city limits. So, with that being said, this could be the second to last, or it could be the last. I was supposed to find out tonight on closing on the house, so this could be my last commission meeting or second to last. You haven't got rid of me yet.
I'm not ready yet.
Still haven't voted.
Even when you leave out
Pete doesn't even know. He may have seen me over there. Pete's my neighbor, so we're gonna have new neighbors over there. So
Haven't seen it for sale sign.
there's no for sale sign.
yet.
No. So that's.
Well, we'll still have to have you back again to honor your service, of course, once you move.
I'll actually be in another county. I'll be there on Fairview Kingston Road, and hopefully maybe
Enjoying that newly paved road.
and higher taxes, and maybe I can.
Paying for that newly paved road as well.
Run for county commission over there and be a fun neighbor to you guys.
Mike? All right, well, I'm good as well. Now we have time for community input concerns. If you'd like to address the commission, just come up to the podium there. And actually, we're going to get to you. You're here for an agenda item, so unless you just have something else to do, so you're welcome to, obviously. Just step into the podium, and you're welcome to state your name and address and tell us what you want to tell us. No? All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I had someone who was going to attend the meeting today, but she couldn't, and she sent me an email, she's sick, I was wondering if I could enter this in the record.
Sure, go ahead.
That's from Kim Tierney, and she lives at 925 Mount Pleasant Road. And she said, Ms. Clark, I was planning on attending the meeting this evening to listen to the comments of the commissioners, keeping the speed on Mount Pleasant Road as is. However, I'm sick with a chest cold. I hope that reason prevails and speed limits remain at the present speeds for the safety of our residents. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's from Kim Tierney. Thank you.
Okay, and no one else, so we can move on from community input concerns to department reports. Everyone's had a chance to read department reports, and we have some department heads here. Is there anything to add?
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I just got a couple of quick things to let everybody know that multimodal and safe routes to school grant projects, we had some pre-construction meetings for both of those. Tentative start date for the multimodal projects, December 1st, with a tentative end date of April 30th. Tentative start date for safe routes to school would be December 5th with a May 5th tentative end date. I would not be surprised if those were pushed back to a start date at sometime in the middle or end of January, and then the tentative end dates would be sometime in the middle of end of June. 150 days for construction for both of those projects, but they will run concurrently. We will have shovels in the ground very soon. South Coffin Road Bridge did not make the December letting for the TDOT's construction list. My feedback from TDOT this week was, as of now, the subject project pushed to the February 2022 letter. So TDOT just lets every other month. Splash pad is coming along swimmingly. Should be finished. Should be finished right around the middle of December, somewhere around in there. And I'd like to take the opportunity really to thank Brandy for her diligent work in this splash pad. She has really worked as a general contractor on this project, getting the trades all together and making sure that everything's running on schedule. She's done a fantastic job with her organization. So thank you very much, Brandy.
Where are we on the pump house for that? Pump house tractor? Monday.
Yeah, so it'll go up very quickly as well. T-Day will. Sure.
One thing I might suggest to think about is a grand opening ceremony for that, and inviting the manager of the Gulf of Tennessee, of course, Jake Owen, out to open the facility whenever it is officially open. I don't imagine we'll open it while it's freezing weather, but probably next spring sometime. Have kind of a grand opening and see if they have any interest in that. Might even get the elementary school involved, because a lot of those elementary age kids are going to be down there splashing around in the summer. To thank both Jake Owen Foundation and the Gulf of Tennessee for holding up $350,000 so that thing can be built.
Right.
So I don't know if they have an interest in that publicity or not. It may not. I think we ought to reach out to them.
Could certainly ask.
We've already discussed over the ceremony. It'll be the weekend of Memorial Day, kind of around that time when we would normally open it up.
Which is, yeah, it always open level. We could cancel the Memorial Day picnic some years back, but we could maybe have some kind of something around Memorial Day with the new edition like that.
I don't know that
Maybe
some
not
of
the
those
full-on
people
picnic, but
are going to be available that weekend because it's a holiday weekend, but it has been discussed and we're talking about it.
okay. On the radar.
I had a question on the splash pad too. Are you still pursuing fees for out of town buses and whatnot?
Those are things we're going to discuss in the retreat in the spring. And there's lots of things we need to work out regarding the splash pad in the spring before we officially open it up to the public.
So we're still going to try and pursue that?
Oh, absolutely on the buses, but I think there's a numerous things we need to come to terms with.
I mean, ultimately, that would be the decision of the board here, I think, so
Yeah.
to set those fees. So,
I mean, there's a list of things we'll discuss in the retreat regarding the splash pad.
If we don't take, if we don't get that in the retreat today, how we could have a workshop on this? Because I think once a year is not gonna, might not get all solved.
Yeah, I mean, we could, we typically do have multiple workshops, obviously. We have the retreat, but then we also have multiple budget workshops as well, so, to cover most of those things, like, that's a possibility. Tended to handle things all right with just the retreat for the past numerous years, so. All right, sorry, is there anything else additional?
No, sir.
Reports?
Thank
All right. Legal updates?
I actually have something tonight.
Very good.
So some of you have probably been hearing about the OSHA mandate that was put into place with respect to vaccinations and
Yes.
things that applies to 100+ employee facilities and governmental agencies. We, of course, under TOSHA, are a certified compliant state under OSHA. OSHA has us complying with OSHA, if that makes sense. And in most recent special session, our General Assembly passed laws that prohibited the requirement of vaccinations by governmental entities and certain other persons, unless you could obtain an exemption to show that you were going to lose federal funds if you didn't require it. So there's kind of all these different little pieces that are going on with respect to that. We've got a lot of conversations back and forth between municipal attorneys about just where exactly our cities are going to find themselves. But I just read an update today. There's also, of course, lawsuits involving these OSHA mandates that I know y'all have heard about. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has stayed the enforcement of that. The Biden administration has also said, yeah, we're going to wait till we get some court rulings. Those lawsuits have been filed in all of the appellate court circuits throughout the United States. And so when that happens, they have a multi-judge panel that selects one circuit to hear everybody's multi-state work. The Sixth Circuit, which is the one we're in, has been selected to hear this. So stay tuned with respect to whether or not we can or can't or should or shouldn't require vaccinations. But I just kind of wanted to update you, let you know there's a lot of moving parts on this. So if anybody asks you or anything along those lines, we don't know yet.
The recent study by the Supreme Court was employer mandates, not government employee mandates.
Well, OSHA also pulled in governmental entities as well, which of course is where we would fall. And then there's question if you receive federal funding, because there was also some dynamic with the Biden administration, the federal funding would also be contingent upon your mandate of the vaccination.
So it's not separating the public employees or city employees from the mandate was for anybody with 100 or more employees had to get them.
But there was a component of that under OSHA and TOSHA hand in hand that pulled in governmental entities to that.
Okay, but so we're in that same group, or we're separate from that?
We would be in that same, potentially, that same group until we can get it all sorted out. 'Cause we've got federal law conflicting with state law, and now we've got the courts that are going to weigh in on it.
All right, that's fully muddy.
By the time that makes it to the courts, it may not even be an
That's
issue.
exactly right. Maybe a moot point at that point. anyway, so.
Right, okay.
All right, very good. All right, I think that's it. So we have under unfinished business, we have item A, second reading of ordinance 21-012, amending ordinance 21-002, the 2021-2022 budget. We have a motion.
Motion.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Or actually call the roll.
Carolyn Clark.
Aye.
Josh Etherly,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Hargis,
Yes,
Glenn Remy.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, under new business, the first item is continued discussion of traffic speed mitigation and the Kingston Springs town limits. And I actually have asked Pete Height to be here tonight. He's a retired TDOT traffic engineer. And I thought he's got a lot of experience with speed limits, so I thought it would be useful to bring in an expert and a local expert at that. And of course, Chief Ivy is here too to help us address some of the issues of enforcement and what that does in relationship to speed limits. So, Pete, do you have something you'd like to maybe start with? I know you've gotten some of the background information, and then we can also.
Do I need to stand? or-
You can stand or sit or whatever makes you comfortable.
Make some notes, yeah,
You're here to, we're grateful for your presence.
I've been retired for 13 years or so, so. Some things might have changed since my experience with TDOT. Like the mayor said, I worked with them mostly as a traffic engineer. In fact, I'll take credit or blame for the traffic lights two traffic lights we have in town and everything, all those that people took. They were my projects and I got put up and managed. But anyway, I've lived here most of my life. My parents moved here in 1959, so we've seen it all. So, but anyway, I at the mayor's request, I've looked at the I guess staff recommendations and went over those and kind of weighed them in with my own experience. And I can't be totally impartial since I live here and I live on Harpeth Trail, which has a few issues itself. So I'll try to talk from a traffic engineering standpoint, but I may make a comment or two on the other thing. Traffic engineers generally mostly are supposed to depend on science and numbers and cars, and the ideal speed limit we were taught to set was the 80th percentile based on a radar study. But because the philosophy behind that is most people want to drive safely, about 80%. There's about 20% that maybe are not driving safe. So you find out where that percentile is, and pretty much that seems to be a good safe speed limit. Then you can go verify and check. Sometimes it's done just by driving the road, looking for the hidden problems and using your engineering judgment to determine what is the best speed limit. So that's the background of where traffic engineers come from. And I guess another thing about the city's ability to set speed limits and even on state highways, as I've always understood, this is the city within their city limits can set the speed limits. Statewide speed limit was 65 unless otherwise lowered or whatever, and so the city can set the speed limits. There's one provision in the TCA that says if the commissioner can remove or change any nuisance, they call it. Yeah, I guess if somebody said a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit on a state highway, that might be a nuisance. But we're not talking about that here. So I looked over the recommendations, and I like what they've done. The consistency issue is one of the best things that jumps out. That basically, I think you're setting basically two speed limits, as I understood. 35 on the major roads, including Mount Pleasant, and then 20 elsewhere. I might personally recommend a third speed limit, and because 20 miles per hour, that's just 5 miles an hour above school zone, and I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of compliance with that, and people obeying that speed limit on some of the roads. Downtown, I don't think there's a problem. In the historical downtown, which I've lived in before, I don't think there's a problem. I drove around myself, and I drove around some of these speed limits, and some people behind me didn't get happy. But just to check them out, and in the historical area, that makes pretty good sense. The way I've always been taught to think about roads is their usage and purpose. And we kind of break them down into arteries, which East Kingston Springs Road, State Highway would definitely be an artery. And then collectors, which you collect traffic from the local streets and you funnel them towards an artery. That's another branch of that tree. And then, of course, the local roads. And living on what would be defined as a collector road, a Harpeth Trail, 20, I don't personally, maybe just not my engineering viewpoint, but yeah, the 30, I think works. If you got a little help with it, maybe some traffic calming measures like additional four-way stops, or maybe even speed bumps. I'm sorry, I said that word, but it can work with some additional, traffic calming measures, including the radar signs, which I heard you talk about before. And so in some places the 30, like on the collectors, like Parkview Trail. I'm trying to think of what other collectors there might be. Sims High, Patterson Road, but that controls itself. That road's so swirly, it just.
Yeah, there are a lot of, like, if you drive Sims Heights at 30 miles an hour, it's challenging.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So, on the collectors, I think at least 25 or 30. On the local streets, I'm trying to use some Parkview Trail streets, that are basically dead ends and such, where else are we talking about? I guess, city limits goes out to the ranchettes, Parson, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are local streets. The 20, I think would work well. But I would basically recommend adding that third layer of speed on some of the collector roads, which right now I guess Harborview Trail's only one I think of. And I'm not crazy about Harborview Trail being a collector. So I woke up one morning years ago and Harborview Trail was I-40. I-40 is shut down. East Kingston Springs Road is shut down. I wake up and there's tractor trailers,
Yeah.
So that's been a problem once, but a collector, but sometimes traffic is diverted on it and people get impatient and fly through it. But some sort of traffic calming measures, I think, four-way stops, landscaping is one measure that I've seen promoted in the past. I think Bellmead did some of that. They put some planning in the median and some things on the shoulders that you still have a 12-foot lane. Tractor trailers can get through, but it just looks a little more confining and it encourages people to maybe tap the brakes a little bit. And I don't think a lot of places it has been used, but my gut feeling is it would be effective in some places, that kind of traffic calming. And I would encourage more signage. If you go turn onto a road like
Speed limit sign, you mean?
excuse me, signage,
Yeah, more speed limit sign?
speed limit sign
Okay.
at the beginning of a speed zone and then maybe reinforce it somewhere down the road. Anytime the speed changes, obviously you really need to put the sign up there. There would be one conflict on our Harborview Trail, I guess, with the school zones. And I was trying to read in the documentation manual on uniform traffic control devices. I didn't really, I guess I didn't spot it the first time around, but when you got one speed limit and saying 30, I don't know if you have an on-call engineer, maybe someone needs to look into that particular situation. But yeah, if you're going to change speed limits, make sure you have signage. And signage of the speed limit will help, I think, help compliance somewhat, because I don't even know what some of the speed limits are in some places. So, but I think those are the main points. I think you should go with this policy. And like I said, I really like the consistency. These roads are going to be a certain speed limit. It's going to be something else. So that'll be easy to enforce and easy for people to comply with also, which is what we want more than anything. Compliance.
Do we have four-way crossing, or we don't have four-way stops on Harborview Trail?
There's not a four-way stop. There's a three-way
There's some three ways.
at that corner.
Where there's but there are some that aren't three-way stops.
Yeah, because Woodlands Drive crosses, but it's Harborview Trail.
Yeah.
Trail doesn't stop. So it's only a three-way stop at the center where the new stop sign is.
Yeah, I meant to talk to my neighbors about that particular intersection. A four-way stop might be effective somewhat. It gets pretty busy, and I know the school buses like to use it on some occasions.
Yeah.
Move through there. But I see, and again, I'm getting personal, not being objective like an engineer. I look out my window, but that back room, all the kids are gone. Two of us got 4 bedrooms, so I can look out there on an afternoon, boy, there's pedestrian traffic, people walking dogs with their kids, right? It is busy, and I counted like 20 pedestrians before I saw the first car. So that I guess, I don't know if the sidewalks are coming up that far.
They are.
They are. Well, that'll help a
That
lot,
country.
but it's a busy road, but
I'm one of those pedestrians on a pretty frequent occasion.
yeah, well, all right. I'll give you a shout out.
So,
But basically,
still not faster than a car.
I think this is it's good to have a plan like this, and the major comment I have is just add a third layer
Third
of-
speed limit, so you think like a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
on
and
a
a
collector,
30.
and all right, and I'm trying to think what else would be defined a collector road.
It's Mount Pleasant.
So,
I mean, because what this would also do is it would take it would take Oak and Maple Street, Love Street, it would take it from 15 mile an hour to 20 mile an hour, which I think is still reasonable. It's
yeah,
not many people actually go 15 miles an hour down this
Yeah.
road, so.
You know, I think it's interesting, especially when in respect to the Mount Pleasant, you're talking about what Belle Meade did, and I've never really even thought about a traffic calming type situation. I don't think it would work on like Harpeth Beach Trail where you have the condensed housing.
no.
But on Mount Pleasant, obviously that's a town expense, right? And you have to upkeep. But,
Right.
as Carolyn talked about, I think 2 months ago, it's the people that you're controlling. You can put up all the signs you want. That's a pretty interesting thought on some type of calming.
Yeah.
Like a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, something, but that's an
Wouldn't be
interesting
great.
thought on Mount Pleasant, especially.
I just hope that.
Because I mean, we can put the signs up. But
I just hope, I appreciate everything that you're saying and your expertise in that, but I still think it falls back to the people that are living on the streets. And I
I
just, when I have this,
But we can't do a survey of every street in Kingston Springs and let everybody set their own speed limit, can we? Or should we? I mean, I think that would be
I think
cumbersome.
you should find out what people want, especially on Mount Pleasant. Going down, I don't think people have that much of a problem with. Some people did because they didn't want to pay the expense of the new signs that I talked to. But when you're raising a speed limit where there already are cars going 40 and 50 admittedly miles an hour, it's like you're rewarding bad behavior. Oh, we're gonna raise the speed limit and now you're gonna go 60 miles an hour.
But I guess what
And then-
I'd like sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, predominantly, I know that, I hope you all read every single thing that was on here. And most of the people that even saw one side said, well, I would like it for myself, but I don't think anybody else is gonna do it.
Yeah.
And there was only one person who wanted it changed, and that was it. And especially with people crossing that road to go to their mailboxes, that's it. There's no sight distance measurements. Can you see 250 feet behind some of those curves, behind the vegetation coming up on the intersection? There's 8 roads that come into there, and I just think people, one person said that, I'm sure you read it, that it's anxiety inducing to go to the mailbox now. And
I mean, I'm sure it always has been on that road, but
but raising it is just like,
so part of the reason I think some of this came out, and the reason we're looking at it is we have, I think Chief Ivy, you brought up many times before that we, in some ways, don't actually have a huge problem because we don't have a lot of accidents or a lot of traffic incidents in our town on average, do we? Very rare.
And also, did Jeremy, did this get included in y'all's packet, the 24-hour from Mount Pleasant Road?
No.
We just got the speed tracker fixed.
Yeah.
And he set it up there for a 24-hour period. So these are the numbers that was pulled. It was set up in the 500 block of Mount Pleasant Road, which is a 30 miles an hour speed limit. During that 24 hours, 1,542 cars were recorded.
Goodness gracious.
The fastest was 49 miles an hour. That's the fastest. Of the 1,542 that were recorded, 868 vehicles, or 56%, were traveling 35 miles an hour or slower. 551 vehicles, or 36%, were traveling between 36 and 40 miles an hour. 115 vehicles, or 7.5, were doing between 41 and 45 miles an hour. You had 8 vehicles, which was 0.5%, that was traveling between 46 and 50 miles an hour. So in a 24-hour period with, the 1,542 vehicles, you had 0.5% that was traveling between 46 and 50 miles an hour. So I think some of it is the perception of what people are perceiving the speeds to be.
That's kind of a downhill area also, which
I count, what is 500 block? I don't know.
it's down.
Your house?
This is at my house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right past there.
So I mean, that's just the data come off of it. That's just no,
That's
on
very
that one road,
interesting.
that's how many cars pass, that's the average speed.
But that's just one day of that. That's,
It is.
that's not, I mean, real data takes 7 days to do.
Well, so real data can take as long as you want.
Right,
I
right.
mean, because you can write data to come out.
But what time did it start? I think I didn't see it up there from 10 o'clock in the morning. And that was,
24 hour
I don't know the exact time.
no, but that's not morning.
But it was a full 24
It was
hour
a
period, so it
full
covered,
24-hour period.
covered all. of
Hours,
it.
yeah.
And I agree, Carolyn, I mean, it's only 24, 1,542 cars.
That's
That's a pretty good sample size.
Yeah.
That,
In his high.
that's amazing. I would have thought the
Um,
highest was 49 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think that where the concern comes, and I mean, honestly, I mean, between 30, 35 miles an hour, like, I don't think it's gonna make a hill of beans difference, honestly, like, in how people perform on it. Like, I would be fine with leaving it at 30 miles an hour, because I don't think it's gonna change how people act one way or the other. The consistency issue, we wanna make all the roads the highest speed limit 30 miles an hour in town, like it is right now, and then maybe raise the ones to 20 and do that or whatever, and have that would be fine with me too. I think what we want is a consistency, because where we do have a problem, an actual problem, is when we get speeding violations and take them to court, they don't end up too well, do they? Yeah. And so, and what do you think is a perception of a town whose speeding tickets get thrown out in court? Is it good?
No, it's not.
How many speeding tickets are regularly written on Mount Pleasant?
It just varies. Sometimes if they do, I mean, I couldn't tell you for a month. I've never really just sat and looked unless we did.
That might help if we had some
Saturation.
kind of 3-month survey of.
You got a month report right in there.
But it doesn't break down.
No, it doesn't.
Bring that traffic. Okay.
So,
But it does say violations of that.
Because the people that I had surveyed said they hadn't seen enforcement in a long time. They said they used to see it, but they didn't see it anymore.
TC,
I don't know. They're still.
camp out.
I see it all the
Topside.
time. I got my parents' house, live on Sims Heights, and I see them on Sundays.
I'm on Mount Pleasant every day.
And that would be TC up there.
Because I just did it the right times of day. So anyway, I mean, I think that's the point though, and is like you said, is we want to have some kind of consistency, I think,
Right.
between it so that we can adequately enforce it. It's good to have that data though to do it. And I mean, if everybody's fine, I mean, I would be fine with the highest speed limit being 30 miles an hour. I mean, in some ways, after digging into this for a long period we have, like, heck, maybe we just need to put some more signs up and stick with it is, because we're not having a ton of violations.
Well, we're talking, we're already talking about moving like Kingston Springs or West Kingston Springs Road to 35. And I don't think anybody had a problem with that because it's such a straightaway. So I don't understand what would the problem be with having 35 East Kingston, 35 West Kingston, 30 Mount Pleasant, keep it as it is, and then reduce that everything else to, and I think this goes to what you said, 20 would be a perfect world, but people aren't going to do it. And I think Mike suggested last meeting, 25. That's what Metro did. Metro
Yeah.
and Nashville reduced all their streets from 30 to 25.
So then we have 4 or 5 speed limits.
No, we'd have
4. We have
35, 30, and 25.
And 20.
No, she's saying not.
I'm saying not 20.
She's saying no.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think people should drive 25 miles an hour down a one-way street?
Oh, this area, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But that would just be for this area,
Yeah.
and probably Kingston Park.
Yeah. And down to the park and, you know. So you really enforce people.
But as Pete had a similar recommendation, just the 3, right? We're only
Yeah.
talking about 2 collector streets, right? Mount Pleasant and Hartford View Trail. That's the main collector streets. of Kingston
Those are the
Springs.
main
I
collectors.
mean,
East Kingston Springs is an artery, it's a state
yeah,
road.
you wouldn't count the Meadows. That's not a collector street. Those are the 2. So you essentially could have 2 speed limits for the 2 collector streets at 30 miles an hour. Right? And then consistency at 20 miles an hour on those
On
other
every
streets,
other-
and then
other farm.
35 on east and west.
Yeah.
Except for in the historical downtown.
Yeah.
And there's your
Yeah.
3,
Mhm.
and that seems very reasonable. It's very consistent throughout, and enforceable, I think.
Well, I mean, either way, signage is gonna be a big thing, just because.
Yeah, we just need
You
signage.
you come off Highway 70 in the county, you're 35, you get to the city bridge, you're
Yeah,
30.
yeah, it's
I mean, then you get back out to the red light, you're 35.
consistency and signage,
That's a big issue.
and
Right.
and having 2 streets that are 30 miles an hour.
I think people know what the speed
What the
limits are.
speed limit
Yeah,
is.
what's expected, that helps a lot, I think, with compliance.
A majority of the speeders on Mount Pleasant are people that live in the ranchettes. They come up that way, they either take a right over CC Road. Because I drive it in the school bus, it's like crazy, okay?
We
So
always
it's
know
easier to take Mount Pleasant because it's flatter and you can fly a lot more. You can home right on there.
They don't vote, that's why. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think, now that stretch of CC Road, what would be the speed, would we increase the speed on our stretch of CC to 35?
No, no.
That's. not
That's
a good way to
dangerous
drive
as
fast
you can
on.
imagine, I think.
No.
So I think by having more signage and discouraging the.
What is it on CC Road?
30.
Once you get to Maze Road, then it's 35.
So under this, what we were just talking about though, that would not be a collector and go to 20, which would no one ever go 20 on CC Road,
Right.
even though some of them need to. So CC Road is another one we need to. I think it has to stay 30.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
Yeah.
That's your other
Mount
collector.
Pleasant
We
and
missed that
CC
one.
Road needs to maintain.
There's not enough. Mount Pleasant, CC, Hartford View Trail.
By increasing any sort of speed limit on Mount Pleasant, you're just gonna funnel all that traffic that usually would take CC
We go
and
another
just roar down Mount Pleasant Road.
Yeah, that's a good.
And increase traffic to the front of the schools and all of that.
That's a
So
good point.
I rather discourage that traffic and have them take CC Road, which is a quicker way to the interstate anyways.
There's not another one, right?
Well, I mean,
That
you
you're
know,
thinking.
just, our main arteries are just east and west Kingston and then Mount Pleasant and Hartford Beach Trail with left roads. and everything.
CC.
So not too complicated.
No,
So are we thinking too of putting up signs that would all be speed feedback signs?
I think we're putting some up. I
Just
think.
some?
Yeah. I think that we can get those in a way we can put them about town, can't we? Because they're somewhat expensive.
About 35.
On our fees, so. So we, but we can use them as traffic calming devices in different areas, correct? So, am I right? They're affordable.
Oh, yeah, they run off of most of them. have a little
Solar cell on them. Yeah. So, yeah, so just we'd have something we could, the officers could use to about town to try to calm different traffic situations.
yeah, that's why I was wondering.
Now, they
Mr.
do have
Portable,
some that are, I wouldn't recommend getting those because they won't be sitting there when you go back and get it. But they do have some that are.
Yeah, what we were talking about before was permanent,
Permanent, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's 3,800 feet.
3,500.
3,500 feet.
Be honest, right?
Well, the whole sign is LED.
Yeah, that's
The
okay.
speed itself lights up LED and, I mean, it's got
Yeah.
a battery and a solar panel.
Right, I've seen it. Or it
Yeah.
tells you how fast you're going right below the speed limit sign.
You guys are excited about those things on Mount Pleasant? You want those on Mount Pleasant? No, you, really? I mean, But I mean, I agree with you.
People
Some
do-
things, but
People do
they
slow
obey
down
them.
more than
They definitely do.
I know there's one in West Nashville that I always watch. I love
More
it. I
LED
used to cut through from Nashville West back over to Bellevue and well, people do pay attention to it. They'll slow down real slow as soon as they get to them and then they just hit.
Yeah.
Well, I personally don't have a problem with 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. I guess, because of my road coming down that hill on the circle, you go fast and that, you're in somebody's yard anyway.
Most.
Your road.
Your was a private road.
That's almost, yeah, it is a private road,
So-
but it's designed like a lot of the others that you're talking about that are off the collector streets.
Well, and that's,
I guess, like Mary Log and some of those others, I mean, what do you think is the smart enforceable? 'Cause I think that the challenge is, you got the folks like Carolyn's group here that she surveyed, don't want it to go up. You're gonna have some others that ain't gonna like it when it goes down, especially if it goes from 30 to 20.
That's gonna go, I mean, oh, you mean Mary Law? Oh, you mean like
Well, I
other
mean,
streets?
any
Yeah,
other
yeah,
streets,
any other
it's
street
not-
when we raise it, yeah, it's
It's
gonna
not
go
a
down.
collector,
Yeah.
okay? So that's basically what Pete's saying
I
here.
don't know if
I
there's too
think
many.
with the increase of walking traffic, there are so many people out walking these days. I think that is their greatest. Someone's gonna get
I can't think of any that, other than those collector streets that we named, that
That would
that
really
people would have
affect.
a huge problem going to 20. I'm trying
Most
to
of the
think,
downtown
even like
ones,
Woodlands
yeah.
Drive, I don't think that's probably one of the longest ones. What's
Yeah.
the Hartford Meadow Loop? Hartford Meadow. I don't think any of those people have a problem. Those are some of the longest.
What is it,
20
what are
mile.
Harvard's Meadows speed limit
I
saying?
think it's currently 25. Which you've
25.
got a straight stretch basically from West Kingston Springs Road until you hit the big curve that's well.
Back,
in its
the very
elevation.
back.
So that's a pretty high speed strip right through there
So
too.
really,
Sorry,
but I mean, going
I
from
designed
25
those
to 20.
roads too. What years, okay, anyway,
And
sorry.
there's getting to be more and more.
So you can blame Pete now.
But I'm saying there's not many long stretches that we're talking about going to 20 miles an hour that people, I can't think of any.
For people, I mean, the ones I think that people probably would complain about the most already are 20 miles an hour, and that would be right past the park here, right before you get up to Pinnacle Hill. People fly up and down that, and it's 20 miles an hour already, and I know the officers like to sit in the parks.
I think too, a big thing, being a person that came here, 18 years ago, but being new to the town, I know a lot of people were raised here or lived here a long time, longer than that. And I've talked to people who live on my road, who lived on Mount Pleasant, who've been here like 5 or 6 years, and they said, we moved here because it was slow. We moved here so we could drive here and go, ah. And I think maybe when people have been raised here, they forget that. They forget that people leave Nashville, they leave LA, they leave Seattle, they leave places to come here to go. Kingston Springs, a town where that slows down, and I just think people are gonna enjoy driving slower. My opinion.
I enjoy driving slowly, but people around me don't enjoy my slow.
Yeah.
So,
That's like people saying, yes, people upset when you drive the speed limit.
Yeah.
I agree with you, it both goes both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
So
Um,
it's about safety.
Well, I mean, I think we actually made a little progress here, though. I
Absolutely.
mean, so we're maybe looking at 3 speed limits then. I mean, what do you think, Chief, from your perspective, enforcing 3 speed limits? I mean, you guys don't have a huge issue now anyway, but I mean,
I would really like for the commission to think about, instead of thinking about speed limit as a number, think about you're coming home from the meeting tonight. Any street that you'd be driving on, what speed limit would you be driving and expect to be pulled over and given a citation?
5 over.
Everybody's gonna have that expectation. So you gotta think about, I mean, we can have stricter enforcement if we're really having issues. But I don't wanna be a speed trap town. I don't want us to be thought of as we're just trying to make revenue. And the officers, never are they told what to write a speeding ticket at. When they're hired here, I tell them, you enforce the law. If you see something that needs a citation, they make that judgment. Because every street, while it may be 30 miles an hour, there's a difference in 30 miles an hour on the straight stretch in front of the elementary school and coming around the curve at very low blanket. Or if it's pouring down rain. I mean, there's all kinds of factors that play into speed limits. So those speed limits are set for common sense. And unfortunately, our roads dictate most of the speed limit pretty well.
Yeah.
I think that when you look at Mount Pleasant, people aren't flying through there as much as you would think for it to be as straight of a road. I mean, there's enough curves to it, enough driveway connections and things that, to me, I'm surprised that people are driving that slow there.
But they are, Chief.
Well,
That's one day of data. I've got, I've got
you
4
can take
pages.
data, I mean, if we had 365 days of data, then you could say, well, we don't have 366. I mean, that's, you know, we're just being reasonable. That's an everyday in Kingston Springs. That amount of traffic coming through, I don't understand why it would be that. I mean, maybe 3 hours of data is data.
Right, I realize that, but I talked to the people, the residents. They're telling me how fast people are going.
Well, they don't have.
Well, they don't have a radar gun out there. I mean, come on
They're-
now. I mean, I think people speed on Arbor Trail, and I was, and we set up the thing in my yard and got the data back from it, not by my request.
Well, I thought
but
the
it just showed up,
perception,
and then I couldn't believe.
Because the perception
There
is,
was, I mean, I've lived there my whole life, thought all the kids that got out of school at 3 o'clock were driving 50 miles an hour. That was my thought. Before, I would have swore, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We got the data back and it didn't say that. It was very surprising. So that, I agree, it can be more, but that's
Pretty solid data.
that's
1,500 cars,
vehicles. It's-
that's a
24
lot,
hours.
that's a lot.
And look, we argue that, we're at 30, I think we're all agreed.
I think, yeah.
I mean, I think that
Yeah.
we're
not arguing.
we're
Not
good,
pressing.
I mean, we really want to do some stuff to certainly.
I just don't
compromise
want it to
them.
be an unenforceable speed.
Yeah,
I mean, y'all sat here and said during it, you're not gonna get people to do 20. I mean, if you drop some of these roads to 20, I mean, I guess you could only write everybody in town to the point that they did, but then we'd have to have a bigger building for the commission meeting. But, you know, yep, what is a reasonable speed and are you having issues? And I understand this, you know, to me, we got tons of people walking the streets that we did when I grew up here every day, but we also have sidewalks on both sides. So it's safer today to walk East Kingston Springs Road to the high school than it was when I was a kid grew up here. There wasn't sidewalks. So, you know, what's impacting your desire to change the speed limit? Is it accidents? Is it pedestrian complaints? What's driving the need to change?
Residents and
Residents.
pedestrians, is what I feel and see.
And people who come before the commission.
Yeah,
complaining
the
about
people
it.
that live there, they drive more than anybody. We're in a good spot.
I mean, I mean, my main concern, I guess everyone has their own thing, was downtown, like it's a downtown strip right here, because I don't think 30 miles an hour right down this strip here where we have kids and, you know, we have our business, it's a business district, so I think, that, you know, slowing that down makes a whole lot of sense. Granted, no one's got hit by a car there. You know, it's not been an issue, but it seems like it could be, and when more businesses come, that makes more people. I mean, every Thursday night, Friday night, there's a lot of people that come into the filling station and Sky King and those sorts of things, you know, walking across the street. So that's that. And then I think just getting some consistency and better signage and things is going to be a huge thing. So I think we're in a good spot though. We're looking at 3 speed limits and everybody kind of in a position where if we have staff kind of write up a plan along those lines for us to look at next month. Then also we need to get it, what?
3 speed limits. We'll go through an ordinance to.
In order to adopt it. And then
Just 3, right? Not a 15.
just, yeah, I mean, I feel like a 20 mile an
So it's
hour. I mean,
consistent.
like, I mean, when we get to Chief Ivy's thing about like a reasonable speed is, yeah, the speed limit on my road is 20 miles an hour, or 15 miles an hour. How many people drive 15 miles an hour? Probably about nobody. So I think 20 is a pretty reasonable speed to expect people to drive, and it's safe.
With that,
When you talk about an ordinance and the school speed limits may need to be included in the ordinance, that if it's flashing school signs, somebody might come back, so what do you gave me a speeding ticket, but this citywide speed limits are 20 or 25, whatever, you know.
Oh, because it's, yeah, the speed,
Yeah,
just to make
just-
sure that
Yeah.
they would know
It's
the speed limit when
posted.
that's posted, it's what it is.
And this would be in the ordinance, but I think also in this decision, having some map of where the new signs should be, or the additional signs, because that's most of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Telling people, what I mean, 1959, and you don't know what some of the roads are, I've been here 40 years. I don't-
Communicate,
I can't
give
tell you.
them information, I think you'll get better compliance to some extent.
When
Not
Josh comes
everybody's
blazing
gonna-
in from Fairview, we want him to know once he gets to Kingston Springs, he's gotta slow down.
Everybody in the county.
And like, look,
One piece of information would be how many streets go from 30 to 20. I mean,
Yeah, that would be
if you're gonna move.
kind of red
you're gonna
line,
move quite
kind
a
of
few-
red line.
You're gonna move quite a few of them from 30 to 20.
yeah, I didn't check the manual on uniform traffic control devices, which is always adopted by the state legislature as law. And at what point do you use a lower speed limit? Advanced sign that says, you know, speed limit ahead or something, I'm trying to remember the name of the sign.
Reduce speed.
Somebody might want to check
Reduce
in.
speed ahead, I think.
Reduce speed ahead, yeah. If it's 10 or more, I don't remember the exact number. It's been a long time, a lot of brain cells. And, you know, so.
I appreciate you coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Glad to do
Really,
it.
really helpful to have
Well,
both your experience as a long-term resident and as a traffic engineer, so.
Yeah,
don't mind that.
thank you. Shouldn't watch.
So it says on your thing, Chief, 55 stops for traffic, those would be all different traffic violations, right? Yeah, not just speed. Right. Okay.
So. Do you know where to go, John?
Yes, sir.
Staff, do you know where you guys are? All right. Everyone ready to move on to item B? Bill, you good? Okay. All right, item B is discussion of speed limit signage on SR 249 East Kingston Springs Road.
And that's just an easy one, kind of in the last discussion, the letter that I got back from Mr. Vegas, I
Yeah.
asked him what we could do on the road. I know there's a question of if we could put up signage since it was a state route. And he said that we do have jurisdiction over it. So that's just a matter of if we can put in those driver feedback signs. That was his suggestion of the one that we should probably use as a mitigation.
Very good. That's another road, especially just because of the truck traffic. I think, I don't know, what's your perspective on if you're on the state route there on East Kingston Springs Road? I mean, is there more incidents of speeding?
You know, most of the incidents occur when something happens on the interstate. They get trucks that are big trucks on a smaller road and there's not a lot of shoulder. That's
Which
more
is
than
really
blame.
the big
than
problem
speed.
there is there's no shoulder.
Right, that's the biggest problem for that road. Is people dropping off the shoulder and trying to overcorrect.
Now they got the rumble strips.
Now they get rumble
So
strips.
it's good.
Which is actually really, that street is, when we were having those, was go through there, I mean, we were running school buses off. It was just getting really bad, so. All right, item C is approval of second South Cheatham Utility District to refund secondary meters in the amount of $14,510.73. Everything looks good on those. If anyone has a secondary meter, you might want to recuse yourself from this vote. Steve? I do. Do a motion?
Motion.
Do a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passes. Item D.
Mayor, we make sure the minutes reflect that Commissioner Hargis did abstain from the vote. Thank you.
Item D is approval of a gravel donation from Mr. Hall at 209 Acorn, North Kingston Springs.
Mr. Hall, 209 Acorn Court, offers to donate gravel that's currently in his backyard in the town of Kingston Springs. Commissioner Clark and Roger Parker, our Public Works Director, and I went to look at Mr. Hall's backyard and the gravel. It's something that we can use. It's something that's accessible that we would be able to get out of the yard without too much trouble. So we just need permission from the board to accept it as a donation.
All right.
I have a question on that. Instead of a direct donation, would this be more of a I was looking at a quid pro quo agreement, since we are having to do something to get that gravel instead of a straight donation.
He would, I assume, be giving it to the town contingent on the town coming to get it.
Right.
And I would just suggest that the town get something in writing saying that he gives us permission to come onto the property and get the gravel.
Is that something we can draft or we should draft?
I'll draft it.
Okay, so like agreement, contract of sorts.
Absolutely. Just and really not even a contract, just, he's made the offer.
Giving us
We've
permission
accepted
to-
the offer, and part of that acceptance is contingent on his permission to allow us to come back.
Okay, gotcha.
Short and sweet.
Pretty good. Do we have
Love gravel.
a motion for all our gravel?
Motion.
Motion.
All right. Second?
Motion, second.
Second. Okay, did you get that? I think Glenn said it
Glenn was
first.
one.
Carolyn second.
Carolyn was
Carolyn
second.
second.
Thank you. Got it, Jamie.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute, how much gravel? That just cost us an hour and attorney fees. How much was that gravel?
That is true.
I'm just, that's what I'm saying.
I was looking at cost of River Spring gravel, it's like seven.
I was more worried about the fees.
We're multitasking.
All right.
Making
It's flat rate.
Item D is a discussion and approval of grant funding option for multimodal safe routes to school. This is kind of the big thing tonight, so I'll let John and Kelly take over here.
We'll start in an effort to provide as much information to the board as possible. Staff reached out to the Tennessee Comptroller's Office, to MTS, to our auditor, and the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund for potential options to finance these grants. Have you seen from the packet materials, the project cost was divided into the town's portion of these grant materials or the grant costs, and then TDOT's portion of the grant costs. Multimodal and safe routes are pretty solid as far as the costs and the numbers that you're looking at. The TAP project is not gone to construction bids just yet. It should go very, very soon. Spoke with them today. TDOT is looking at the final rendition of the construction plans. So what we are looking at with TAP grant is really just a best estimate of what it would cost as far as our portion, as far as the town's portion and the state's portion. But if you turn to the grant financing option sheet in your packet, you'll see a breakdown of costs, and really the decision to be made tonight would be how to finance. So there's really basically three options that the town could finance, both the town portion and the TDOT portion, all from the fund balance. The town could finance the town portion from the fund balance, and then the TDOT portion from capital outlay notes from a 3-year to 5-year, all the way up to 12-year. Or the town could finance.
Back up a
I
second.
think you mean the other way around, right?
I didn't catch what you were saying there.
I'm sorry, so there are three basic options.
I got that part down. The second option,
Yes,
you said you're gonna finance, you're gonna do what with the city portion and do finance the state portion?
there is the option to have the town pay for the town's portion of this grant out of the fund balance, and then to finance the TDOT portion out of a fund balance of either 3 or 5 or 12 years.
Well, why would we do that when the state's gonna give us the money back as soon as the project's done in 6 months?
Eventually,
During
yes.
it.
But yes, I mean, that is the option, and that's option number one, which is to float the whole thing.
No, well,
No, okay, go ahead.
go ahead. The third option.
And then the third option would be for the town to use the fund, use a capital outlay note to cover the town's expense as well as the TDOT.
Well, John, I'm struggling trying to figure out why we having to borrow money for TDOT for 3 or 5 or 12 years. I mean, this thing's got a 6-month window of completion, right?
Mhm.
And they're gonna submit those invoices during the construction, every month, every other month, whatever it is. And as soon as they're submitted, we turn them over to the state, TDOT, to be paid.
Correct.
How long till payment? 45 days, 60 days?
It could be 60 days, it could be 90 days, it could be 180 days.
Okay, but none of those are 3, 5, or 12 years.
Agreed. And that's why that
Why
option
would
is,
we finance any of it?
again, just trying to provide the board with as many options as possible and as much information as possible.
And we do pay it up front. Once the check is cashed, we have to get a copy of the check, copy of the invoice, submit all that to TDOT with a reimbursement request. A lot of times they'll come back and say, well, you need to change this on the form. Once they accept our reimbursement request, it takes 30 to 45 days to actually receive the reimbursement in-house. So you're looking at some time that our cash could be tied up in the TDOT reimbursement.
Just pay the note out. Just pay the note out. Financing for any length of time.
Well,
You saw it. Maybe accrued
Yeah, it's a lot of
interest.
interest.
that's the point here.
Yeah.
If we go full term.
And
Well-
you can pay it once you get all the money back. But you have to finance for a year, but you can prepay and that you won't be penalized for it. So you have a year's worth of interest cost if it only lasted for a year, that you were waiting on that payment back.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be penalized
Payments are
for.
gonna be chunked out as the project advances. So every time you pay a check out of this, for this project, our portion, you pay the state portion too?
Mhm. It's a reimbursement grant, so we're required to do that.
Do we know, is it typically 33, 33, 30, whatever, on the contractors, on the contract side? Do we know what is customary?
It would be, no, I don't think there is a standard, so the first 2 months to be 33%. If it's a 6-month project, it's not gonna be the first 2 months or 33% of that project, second 2 months or the other 33, third 33. It would be as the contractor continues and produces the work. So the first 2 months, you might have 15% of the project.
Oh,
The
yeah,
second 2 months,
I didn't know if we had a
I see.
kind of a,
Ballpark, an idea.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
idea.
consistent. It would fluctuate.
So
but even if it does, I mean, you're probably talking 30, on the high end, 33.
Yeah.
Possibly 66, because you haven't recouped that first 33 yet. The most you're gonna have out of cash is 66% of this project, probably, right?
Estimate, yeah.
I know, it's a pure guesstimate. So the question is, do we got enough cash to pay 66% of the project?
I would love to hear a recommendation of what is it you might feel too.
It's the will of the board.
Well,
I knew that.
it makes sense to borrow long-term the money the city's gonna owe on a capital outlay note for 15 years. And here's why. The interest rate's a little higher, but the payments are lower. And we got a pretty tight budget anyway. We need to make sure we keep money in reserve for things that we don't know are gonna happen that we're gonna need to pay for. A fire truck, whatever it is. I mean, it's always something. So I believe that our portion, the 369,000, if all 3 grants are approved, ought to be long-term finance, 12 years at 2.2%. If that's the rate for that note. Done. That's our part, okay? Now, the rest of it, if you wanted to finance it for a year or 6 months, whatever you think it takes, you have to sign a 3-year note to do that. And if you pay the note off, is there any penalty?
There's no penalty to pay off for that.
Okay, so the only reason you're doing that is to have cash flow and
Correct.
can protect the reserve. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then in that case, I would be okay with a maximum 1-year note on that. Personally thinking that, hey, you're gonna get your money back within a year and probably before that. So if you prepay it before the year's up, you're only paying 6 months interest. That makes financial sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so that way you're not taking your reserve out and hand it to the state hoping to get it back. I mean, you've got control of that. That's why we have put that money aside over time that's what it's for, is a reserve. I don't think it makes sense for us to float that to the state. Because we may have some other use for that. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know. Right now, we got we spent about 30-something% of the total budget to date. And we got about 15% of the money. Because the money comes in December and January. Pretty much the majority of the money comes in through real estate taxes during those 2 times. So we don't exactly know what we're gonna have year to year until all that's final. And whatever sales tax share that we get from the state. So I don't want to see us tie up, just say, all right, we can pay it out of our funds and tie up all that money until we get it back. So that's my thought is you need long-term financing on the 300. I mean, I don't want to sink this fund by $300,000 for a project that's permanent. That concrete ain't gonna wash away, it's there. I mean, it's a long-term capital note on that one, makes a lot of sense.
I feel
The
like,
payment is less.
because I feel like we've had this conversation before. I'm remembering having a meeting, we had talked, I thought about paying off like the safe routes and paying out of fund balance a smaller portion of that.
We did discuss that.
Yeah.
We didn't have the,
We didn't have
we
the
didn't have the
final
numbers
interest.
was the
Right.
problem at the time.
Right.
So, but could we split that apart and do it and pay safe routes, pay our
Well,
portion
it's
out
kinda-
out of the fund
why would
balance?
you?
Why would you
Why
want to do
would
that?
you do that? I mean, why
Deplete the
take
budget.
out $73,000 of cash we have in basically our operating fund to pay that? When you can finance that for 12 years at 2.2%.
Yes.
It makes no sense. I mean, we would better off using other people's money and spreading out the payment instead of taking all the hit at once. Because here's some things you don't know. You don't know what your tax revenue is gonna be. You're making an estimate on that. You're looking at bigger budget next year, again, every year, pretty much. You don't know what your sales tax is gonna be. So all I'm saying is, we've overspent what the revenue is already this year. And we will probably until December 30th. And we may still be under at that point. Most of it comes in December, another big chunk in January historically on property tax. So at the end of January or even through the end of February, I think the deadline's in the middle of February, you're gonna know at least what your real estate tax is, which is the lion's share. But my point is, you're in that boat every year. You don't know. You don't know till it's the end whether or not what you authorized in your budget covers what you spent. And the reserve fund is there in case those two numbers don't match, which they often don't. We don't know what the take up is going to be on the increase per employee on insurance. That's $60 a month on every head that takes it from now on. I mean, that's not going to get cheaper. That's going to get more expensive.
Right.
Based on my experience with health insurance. So my point is, why take out a chunk of money, even if it's 76,000, and hand it away if you can borrow that on a long-term note? And you're going to get the 900 back from the state within a year, max. That makes sense?
So you're just saying a fourth option, which would be to take a note out on the 370,000, and then we float the state. Or basically until we get our reimbursements.
Or if you needed a note for the 900 because you're nervous about taking that out for 6
We can
months,
take a short-term note on
you
that.
could take a short-term note on the 900. I'm okay with that. I would vote for that. Not 3 and not 5.
Yeah.
And not 12 on the 900. I wouldn't do any of that.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hargis, but just to clarify, I'm not sure if the minimum is 3 years for a capital outlay note or 1. So we're gonna verify that.
That's why I was curious, because that wasn't on.
That was my question. So if you take a capital outlay note for all 900, then, is it for 3 years or can you pay it off early?
You can definitely pay it off early, but I'm just saying that you could not come to terms on a 1-year note.
Right,
It would be
okay.
a
As
3-year
long as we
note.
all understand that when we get the
Idea.
money from the state, we put it against that note.
Exactly.
That's what it's for.
Yes.
So we don't end up
It's a
owing
1 year
that
or
longer
3
than a year at max.
Yeah.
And in that case, I'm all right. And I might even be okay with splitting it half and half if you wanted to float it out of our current funds. But the thing I'm concerned about is I don't want to be underwater in this process.
I think that I'm with Commissioner Hargis on this. I think my one thing we don't know, the one unknown we have, is we don't know what that tap number actually is.
Right.
So
But
we're
it's
taking
a
out a
small
long-term note. Well, it's 150,000, so
150, yeah.
it's like half of it, or not quite half. But anyway, so.
But I mean, that still doesn't, regardless of what the amount is, it doesn't change the concept.
Yeah, I guess not. Well, it would it not for the long-term note on
Well, just be the amount.
It just, the amount.
The amount we
Right, it's 200, you might have to borrow 400.
Right. I mean.
But we've got to move on this pretty soon,
Yeah.
right, with construction. I mean, this isn't something we can, this project's taken so long, it seems like we can just continue to talk about it for the next year and a half, but we can't finally, unfortunately, we don't have that luxury, so.
And we can work with the Tennessee Bond Fund. We do, as I said, we've got the numbers for the town portion for multimodal and safe routes grant. We have an estimate for the TAP grant, but we could see from the empirical data that we have for that TAP grant to see if the Tennessee Bond Fund would, how much additional would they loan as far as if this TAP grant looks like it's going to be 150, we don't know if it's going to be 200. So is there an extra $50,000 that they would include in that grant if that, or if that,
Well, and that might be the case where if it's just a little over 150, 25, 30, 40, 50,000 over.
fund balance?
That might
Fund
just
balance,
have fund
yeah.
balance and you're not taking
That's
too
right.
bad.
And that's all that's at risk at that point.
Right. That's still preserving your cash. So in case something happens, you got the money in your reserve fund to take care of it.
Thoughts from this end of the table?
I'm fairly full agreement on
I
that.
like what Mike was saying about the overreach that could come out of fund balance.
That's a good idea.
Makes sense.
All right, so do we have a motion then to,
Probably need to clarify that.
well, I mean, I said, do we have a motion? But-
Well, I
Yeah,
just-
let's
Let's
state
clarify.
it when you make it, so.
Okay.
Right.
Is your-
Okay, this is my-
I make a motion that we seek a 12-year note on the city's portion of all three of these grants. Okay? Second motion is that we need to investigate, is there a 1-year note that was available through the Tennessee Bond Fund? And if not, is there any penalty for paying it off early? Should we want to borrow the 900 and pay it right back?
Kelly, we already know there's no penalty, correct?
That's correct. You just have 1 year of interest that you have to pay.
Okay, even if you pay it back early, you still owe the interest?
But it is 3 years that you have to take out of the capital outlay.
It is 3.
We'd have to take
100%
3, but we'd have to pay a year's interest.
minimum.
But there's no penalty for prepayment for the
That's a
other
year
2
then.
years. And we wouldn't have the interest for that.
Okay, so we've obligated for 1 year's of interest to buy some, okay. Well, let's make sure that that's the case with the state. I mean, it sounds like you are sure, but let's touch base with them to see that works. So that's my proposal, that we pay that back as quick as we get the money from the state, because that's the state's obligation. They've got to give us that money. Now, the timing may be a little different, and I don't want to draw down the fund to take care of that. I'd like to have a note for that.
So just to clarify real quick, 12-year note on the $369,485.73 or whatever that ends up actually being, and that's the long-term debt that we will owe as town. And then a short 3-year debt with the correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, Mike, so I'm just trying to clarify with you, or what do you want, on the 996,000,
Why don't you just use state portion?
the state, okay, yeah, there we go, on the state portion, with paying it off in a year.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense? Is everyone, are we
Yes.
Second, yes.
all minimally clear about that?
I
Okay,
want
we
to see
have a
that one.
second,
I want to
we
see
have
that one in
first.
the minutes.
Call the roll, John.
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Josh Everly,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes,
Mike Hargis,
Yes.
Lynn Renner.
Yes.
all right, very good.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Mike.
Commissioner Harkins. And stuff.
All right, then we have surplus items, and that is a 45 caliber, or 40 caliber, sorry, ammunition plated for 9mm ammunition. Is item 1, and the second item is a kitchen refrigerator to be discarded. Do we have a- Well, I guess maybe since that's kind of different things, we have a motion on the police, on the 40 caliber ammunition,
Motion on a 40 caliber ammunition.
9mm. Do a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then do we have a motion to discard the KitchenAid refrigerator?
Motion to discard.
No second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, you don't think,
That I didn't say earlier, I forgot, I didn't say earlier because I may not be here this next month. I did want to say thank you so much to the town staff. I've learned so much over the past 3 years and a couple months, and the rest of the commissioners for teaching me so much. It's been one of the most rewarding things that I've been able to be a part of, and hopefully I've done a good job. And I wanted to see sidewalks done. That's what,
Well,
that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to be here when they
Yeah.
were done and the splash pad and the corridor that could, you know.
We'll allow you back.
We'll let you
Yeah,
back in
I-
town
I'll let
for a
you
little-
know.
every now and then.
I'll speed through it, so thank you. Thank you all.
And one other thing, I will not be at next month's meeting. I'm gonna be in California that week, so I'll be out. So you may have a tight one.
Well,
We
well,
all have to show up in December. All right. I just want everyone to know we need to show up in December. Well, so with a commissioner stepping down, we will have to appoint someone to fill the role for the remaining time.
And planning commission.
And Mike, and Josh is also on planning commission. We can do that. We can do that tonight. We could do that at the December meeting. I'd like to do it at a meeting where we have the majority of the board here.
Let's do it.
Or have the whole board here.
I did make the recommendation to Tony. I think there's a lot of good candidates, but just my 2 cents while I'm here. It is a short term. My term is up. We do have a former commissioner still in town that is very involved, that I think would be a great addition, and I don't think he's been reached out to.
Are you talking about Bob?
Bob.
Because I knew you didn't, I called Bob and I told him it wouldn't be a sure thing because I'm only one vote, but I did say I just wanted to see if he was even interested in doing it. And he is, and I told him, and I told him the reasons I thought he would be good for the position is because he doesn't intend to run for the office, so we wouldn't be getting any kind of. Bob Stoller, wouldn't be
And he's
getting any
very
kind of
involved.
advantage to anybody. He serves on the planning commission. He's been involved this whole time, and he's served as vice mayor and mayor.
He can hit the ground running.
And that's it. We'd have somebody that knows what's going on
That'd be a great choice.
instead of.
Bob Stoller.
Bob Stoller.
Stoller, but I'm not going yet.
You're not gone
He's
yet.
not dead yet.
Well, Monty Python.
If we're not gonna do that tonight, by vote, since everybody's here, then if you wanna do it in January.
We can do it in January too. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, it sounds like from the conversation that nobody has a huge issue with that idea. But I think, I don't know. It might be good to have the four remaining commissioners here when we do it. So let's hold up. Or we can do it right now. I mean, other than the fact I don't know.
I guess I would have to.
We can't have
officially
two
I would have to
city
officially
commissioners. We can't have like
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't mind. We move it along. And if Bob's, I don't have no problem with it. Officially making it official.
If your attorney could have a few minutes to actually make sure we're following the process, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we need to hear from our lawyer, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I would plan
that's
on
while we sit here and make these plans.
whatever.
I guess we can move on
Whatever
to
best for the city.
city commission, or city offices will be closed November 25th or 26th for the Thanksgiving holiday, so.
And Mayor, I was remiss in not including in the upcoming events and reminders that the library tree lighting will be the Thursday after Thanksgiving.
Right, December 2nd, yes.
Will the Lundy's project, yeah,
We don't think so. Just while we're waiting, the short story is we've had our engineer review the structural engineer. That's what I was trying to think of. The engineers reviewed the plans. There was initially a 4-foot pipe that was going up the middle along with additional supporting brackets on the outside. There was difficulty finding it all big enough. Lundy couldn't find it all big enough to carve a 4-inch diameter hole through the middle of that trunk. So the structural engineers revisited his numbers and made some adjustments to make it a 3-foot pipe that will go up as far as structural right up to the middle of the pipe. Lundy was able to find a 3-foot or 3-inch awl to go up the middle of it as well. So that's what we're waiting on. So short story is maybe, long story probably not.
Also the Christmas event.
Yes, thank you.
December.
Yeah, December 12th, we'll have a very festive Christmas event at Burns Park. It should be very, very nice. Live music from the Sky King Band, food trucks, free hot chocolate, gingerbread competitions, very festive Christmas nights.
I have a question for John. Is there an update on the fog line striping for Ridgecrest Drive?
Yes, I spoke to the gentleman that does the striping for Tennessee Valley. I got in touch with him. He was looking, he gave me just a rough cost of about $3,500 to do the striping on there. Said it could be done less expensive if he had another project that was in town or around.
Would another striping project qualify as another project? That would still be us, but you know, another one I've had some complaints about is when you take a left at the stop sign here, the stripes are basically gone all the way out to the bridge.
Especially going over the railroad tracks. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's
scary.
one of our runners was saying it's not great, so at night he tries over here, so.
Okay. So, yeah, so we could approach it in two different directions. We could gather sort of a list around town of the areas that need to be striped. And that would probably be enough for us to get a decent rate on striping of the roads. We could also, we're looking to present a couple of paving project options in the December meeting to the commission. So we could always combine those striping, and we could do them all at the same time too.
For paving, and all this would have to happen because they don't pave in the winter.
Right, so it would be in the spring. And as far as striping goes, probably the same. I don't know what the temperature does with that.
I don't know what it is. I know the asphalt, it's not great for asphalt, I don't guess. Is it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the painting of the stripes on the roads too, with the cold temperatures. But yes, so we reached out, I do have an estimate, and we can see what we can do as far as combining that with our project.
Okay,
So what are you gonna?
you have to have a vacancy first, so you have to resign. And then it just has to be filled within 90 days, and if it's not filled within 90 days, you'll have to have a special election to fill the term until his term is regularly ended. So since everyone on here is duly elected, you can do it by appointment.
They appointed tonight.
It can if you resign.
Without him, they.
I would strongly suggest that you reach out, make sure a candidate is interested.
The candidate has said he would do it.
And B, you may just want to solicit and see if anyone else is interested in the position. You're not beholden to that. You can appoint it at will, but that might just be one good practice.
Do, then I will.
What's the will of the board?
I think let's do it.
I'm okay with it. Carolyn, are you okay with that?
It's up to Josh. You
Yeah, no,
wanna resign
that's what
tonight?
I recommend it. That's what's best.
Josh
Moves the city along.
Right.
So I don't know what do I do officially there?
I need you to officially write, I do hereby resign at Kingston Springs.
First, this is the first.
That's sad.
Yeah, I know, like,
I know, I
wasn't expecting that.
Well, we still,
We're not anxious to get rid of it.
we still do have to have Josh back and present him with this plaque and stuff. So you still get, we still need you to come back.
That escalated kind of quickly.
I did.
Much more quickly than I expected.
And you gotta come to the planning council.
Yeah.
So Kingston Springs Board of Commissioners
Board commissioner.
and Planning Commission. Make it effective 11:59 p.m.
I don't have my phone.
It's Thursday, November 18th.
But George's not. Ray needs to make the newspaper story more exciting.
Especially since my neighbors don't know yet. What's Thursday?
The 18th.
Yes.
You want Randy to put in the story that you're gonna have an unlisted number from now on?
Everybody knows it.
With 2-inch type across the top fold.
Read that for myself.
But then it'll be Commissioner forced out.
Yes. Speeding. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Now I get to sit over there and watch you guys.
I don't know, you're still here till 11:59.
Oh, okay. So do I have what? Do I vote on
You
the-
do not need
Okay.
to vote.
do I officially abstain?
Actually, I guess like that didn't create a vacancy, if he's still in.
Right, that's what I was wondering, was-
Okay.
Effective.
Effective, 8/24 PM.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that.
Right.
But I'm not the lawyer, so.
Okay,
Well, normally-
Now
now,
That's
It's not
right.
based on the lead.
Well, it
Oh my God.
it was real bad.
Thank you, Jack.
No,
Mayor,
look at that, it's so
you
cool.
declare that you now have a vacancy.
All right, we do now have a
Still two,
vacancy.
still one. Okay.
While we wait for
Thanks for your
Josh's final
Yeah.
minutes. Well, it was as of 3/24, I believe. All right, we now officially have a vacancy on the Kingston Springs Board of Commissions. Do we have any nominations for someone to fill that position?
I'll nominate Bob Stover to fill an unexpired term. Gosh.
I will second it.
Have a second, all right, maybe we should do a roll call, John, could you call a roll?
Carolyn Clark,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Hargis,
Yes.
Lynn Ritter.
Yes.
Oh. Did you say me? Yeah, did I say yes? I
Yes.
did. Sorry, that's my bad. All right, sorry. That's bad. Okay. All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Oh,
Did you want to
you
cover
first and
planning
second.
commission as well? Planning commission is position.
well,
Well, they're on the planning commission.
Bob is theoretically already on the planning commission. So at least
In that,
No, Bob's on Bob's spot.
Bob's on Bob's
So then
spot.
Bob's on Josh's
So we
spot.
will have an open spot.
Bob's spot.
Can we do
Josh
that?
was,
Keep Bob.
Josh on there.
So that's appointment by the mayor. So is that something we can just maybe sort out? Because I haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, because then that brings up the other question. You have to have the mayor and another member of the board of commissioners.
Yeah.
That would be appointment by spot rather than by name. We'll think through that.
Can we just think through that? Yeah, that might be too much for me when I don't even remember if I voted. So, okay. All right, all in favor?